We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Beis in Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 7b. On the previous summit, we had a machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi in terms of a mitzora. Can a kohen inspect a mitzora on Chol HaMoed? And the basic principle over here is that if it's a situation where you're for sure only going to cause something negative to happen, because let's say the person was totally pure, and what can happen is either he'll be pure or you can actually declare him tamei, so that'd be negative. So in that case, everybody agrees you don't do an inspection like that on Chol HaMoed. The same as the opposite. Let's say it's Hezker Rishon, the Gemara said, let's say the Mitzvah is already in quarantine. The worst that could happen is you extend the quarantine. It's the first week of quarantine. The worst that it can happen is it gets extended. Everyone agrees the Kohen can inspect in that situation, because again, either he'll be declared pure, which would be good, something that's happy on the Moed, or he's going to be declared that he has to continue in quarantine. The Machlokas, says Rava, between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, is in the following case. Behezger Sheni, the Machlokas is when he's already in the second week of quarantine. So Marsav are bekohen talya milsa. So one opinion holds that it's all dependent on the kohen. Eat tahar amar letar v'tamei shasik. Very simple. If he's tahar, tell him he's tahar, and if not, just be quiet. Umar Savar, but the other one says, meaning Rabbi Yossi says, no, letaro o letamoksiv. It says you have to make him pure or impure. You're going to have to make a decision. You can't simply be quiet. Rashi over here explains, because once you're in already the second week of quarantine, so then if you're declared tamei, it actually gets worse. You go into tumah chamura, you're 100% declared a mitzora, umitzarli, that's going to be a pain for the person. So there already there's a question. Ma Rabbi Meir de Amar Roa Lahakil Letara V'lo Letame. So Rabbi Meir says you can do the inspection and you'll only be lenient on the guy. You won't make him tamei. Savar bekohen talar rachmana, because he holds that it's all dependent on the kohen. Di metamele have tamei. If he says he's tamei, he's tamei. V'ilo boy metamele lo have tamei. And if he doesn't say he's tamei, he's not tamei. Ulachi chazi leilahakil. Therefore, what you do is you do the inspection and you only declare it if it's a situation of leniency. Avalo lahachmer, you don't declare anything if it's to be strict. Di chazi le have tamei, meaning if you see that the guy is tamei, lo le malei klum, just don't say anything. V'lo have tamei, he won't become tamei. Umar Rabbi Yossi damar lo lahakil, and Rabbi Yossi says you can't do any inspection at all, not even for leniency. Savar letaro uletamoksiv. He holds because you have to declare one way or the other. Dechichazi le kohen the tamei, because in that situation, if the kohen sees that he's tamei, lo motzi lemishtach, he cannot be quiet. V'dil mahavit tamei, maybe he is tamei. V'nimtza mitzaro shemetamo b'moed, and then if he does the inspection now, it is going to be a pain for the individual because he's going to be metamei him on Chol HaMoed. The Gemara continues. Amar Mar, the master said, this is quoting the above brisa. Amar Rebbe says, Nir in Divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muchlat. Rabbi Yossi appears to be correct by a mitzora who's a tamei muchlat, who's fully a mitzora. There, you should not do any inspection. V'divrei Rabbi Meir b'muskar, and Rabbi Meir appears correct when you have a mitzora that's just in quarantine. There, you can do again an inspection, lo hakil. Gemara then says, one second, V'atanya, we learned in a brisa ibcha. We actually learned in a brisa the exact opposite. Rashi over here says, V'atanya ibcha divrei Rabbi Meir b'muchlat, divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muskar. Says the exact opposite, that by a muchlat, it appears that Rabbi Meir is correct, that you can do it lo hakil, you can do the inspection. And Rabbi Yossi, by quarantine, that's what Rabbi said, it seems that Rabbi Yossi is correct in a case of quarantine, where you should not do the inspection at all. So which one is it? So the Gemara says Tanoihi. It's actually a machlokas Tanoim, exactly which one is correct. Tanoihi aliba de Rebbe. It's a machlokas Tanoim. What exactly did Rebbe say? Did Rebbe say that Rabbi Yossi appears correct by muchlat or by muskar, and the same thing by Rabbi Meir? Was it by muskar or by muchlat? Which one? That's a machlokas Tanoim. And what's the issue? Mar Savar, because one holds savsa di alma odifle. The person would rather come back into the machana and be around other people. Umar Savar savsa di ishto adifle. And the other one says that the person would rather be with his wife, doesn't really care so much if he's separated from other people. Rashi over here explains. Mar Savar savsa di ishto adifle. The person prefers the company of his wife. Ulahachi chazi le b'moed behezger sheni. Since the person prefers the company of his wife, so therefore it would make sense to say that let's say you have a situation where the person's in quarantine, you can inspect it on Chol HaMoed. Why? Because if he's tar, then it's great, everything's good. And even in a situation where you make the person tamei, and you declare him to be a mitzora muchlat, and you send him out of all three machanos, again, this is a situation where he's already in the second week of quarantine, so now he's going to be a tamei muchlat, even that's okay. Even though he doesn't have the company of other people because he's sent outside of the city, nevertheless, it's not a pain for the person. Because he has the company of his wife, because the halach is a person is allowed to be with his wife and he can be alone with her during these times when he's a mitzora muchlat. So according to the idea that savsa de ishto adif, so then in a situation where the person is in quarantine, that's what Rabbi was saying. It makes sense in a situation of quarantine that you can do the inspection. V'divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muchlat, and it appears that Rabbi Yossi is correct by a muchlat. That's the case where you should be strict. Why? Because in that case, even if you're going to be mitar the person, even if you're going to pronounce what would seem to be a leniency, now he's going to be permitted from Machane Yisrael. He can come back in the camp, he can come back in the city, but is late tzara, he's still going to be in pain. The less late tzavsa ishto, because actually at that point he's not going to be able to be with his wife. The asru, he's actually asru his wife at that moment. The kevan de mitar le mechiluto, because once you declare that he's tar, that he's pure from being a mitzora muchlat, the halach is miboyle lemimne sheva yemei sviro. He actually has to count 7 days. Uvemei sviro asur b'tash v'shamit, and during that count of 7 days, he's actually asur to have relations. T'chsiv vayeshev michutz la'alo shivas yamim, says he has to be outside of his tent for 7 days. V'yalo zu ishto t'chsiv shuvu lachem li'alechem. Alo refers to his wife. So again, the one who says tzavsa de ishto adifle, so then it would make more sense to do the inspection in a situation where he's in quarantine. Umar Zamar, and the other one holds no, tzavsa de alma adifle. Actually, the person prefers to be with people. So Haitana Damar Amar Rebbe Nir and Divrei Rabbi Meir b'muchlat, meaning the Tana that said that Rebbe said that Rabbi Meir appears correct, you should do the inspection by a muchlat. But Divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muskar, and you should not do the inspection by a muskar. Savar tzavsa de alma adifle holds that actually the person prefers to be around people. So now it all makes sense. During the time when the person's a mitzora muchlat, you can do the inspection. The imitamo lo mitame yoser min de meikara, because if it's tame, it's not no worse than it was before. The imitar, and if he makes him tar mesamcho, he's going to be happy. The islate tzavsa dialma, now he's welcomed back into the machana, and he's going to have company of people. Afagav the aser b'tash m'shamita, and even though he's aser to have relations, tzavsa dialma adifle, the person prefers tzavsa dialma, so when he's a muchlat, you might as well do the inspection. V'divrei Rabbi Yossi b'muskar, and Rabbi Yossi appears correct when he's in quarantine. The lo chazila, you shouldn't do the inspection, because now maybe he's going to be pronounced tamei. Chutz l'gimel machanos, now he's going to be excommunicated completely. V'les leit tzavsa dialma, he won't have the company of people. Umitzarle, that's going to be a pain for this individual, and so therefore again, it just depends how you look at the situation. Is the tzavsa di ishto, is that more important for the person, or tzavsa di alma, is that more important for the individual? And the Gemara continues, L'meimer, do you mean to say the muchlat mutter b'tash meshamita, that somebody who's a mitzora muchlat is allowed to have relations with his wife? And the Gemara says, yes, he is. V'atanya, as we learned in a brisa, it says v'yashav michutz li'olo shivas yamim. It says that he has to stay outside of his tent for 7 days. Sheyei aser b'tash meshamita, that he's forbidden in tash meshamita. V'yein alo ela ishto, and alo refers to his wife. Shenemar lech emor lehem shuvu lachem li'alechem. It says go back to your tents. That means your wife. Rabbi Yehuda says shivas yamim yispru lo yemei sviro v'lo yemei chaluto. Rabbi Yehuda says no. When we count 7 days, only during the days of counting he can't be with his wife, but in the days when he's a mitzora muchlat, he could be with his wife. Rabbi Yehuda says zayim yemei sviro, for the 7 days of counting he cannot have relations. Kal v'chomer limei chiluto, and that's certainly true during the time when he is a mitzora muchlat. The Gemara continues, V'yomer Rabbi Chia, and Rabbi Chia said, Danti lifnei Rebbe, I deliberated this in front of Rebbe, and I said to him as follows, Limaratanu Rabbeinu, didn't our master teach us, Yosam lo haya lo Uziyo el b'mei chiluto, that Yosam was born to Uziyo when he was a mitzora muchlat? Wouldn't that indicate that indeed when a person's a mitzora muchlat, they can have relations? And the Gemara says, Amar lo, he said to him, yes, afani kach amarti, that's exactly what I said. The Gemara now explains, B'mai kamiflagi, this brisa that we quoted above, again we had a machlokas during the yemei chiluto, whether the person can have relations with his wife. What is the machlokas? What are they arguing about? Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Sav, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda holds Goli Rachmana b'mei sefiro. The Torah tells us he can't be with his wife during the days that he's counting. V'kol sheken b'mei chiluto. So we make a kal v'chomer that is certainly true when he's a mitzora muchlat. Umar Savar, but the other opinion holds no. My the Goli, whatever the Torah tells you, that's what it tells you. Meaning Rabbi Yehuda would hold only during the yemei sefiro, which the Torah says that's when it's a problem. Umay de lo Goli, and if the Torah didn't say so, meaning during the time that he's a mitzora muchlat, the Torah never said there's a problem. So therefore we assume there's no problem. And the Gemara continues, L'meimra de v'kohen talya milsa. Do you mean to say that everything is dependent upon the Kohen? As Rashi over here says, L'meimra de v'kohen talya milsa, parach bein l'Rabbi Meir, bein l'Rabbi Yossi. This question is both according to Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. The Rabbi Meir omer behedyo itame shasek. Rabbi Meir says explicitly that if the person is tamei, the Kohen can just decide to be quiet, not say anything, and he's not tamei. Rabbi Yossi, Kamar, and Rabbi Yossi also says similarly, ein rowan klal. He says just don't do the inspection. Mechlal de Rabbi Yossi savar. Sounds like Rabbi Yossi saying, ilo boy, lo chazilei, v'lo avitamei. If the Kohen wants, he doesn't have to do the inspection, and then the guy's not going to be tamei. So is this really all dependent on the Kohen? And the Gemara says, yes, it is dependent on the Kohen. V'atanya, as we learned in a brisa, uv'yom heroes bo. It says on the day that the Kohen, it's shown to the Kohen, yesh yom shataro bo, v'yesh yom she'iyataro bo. Some days you can choose to look and to do the inspection of tzaras, and some days the Kohen has the option to say, we're not going to do the inspection. Mikan amru, from here they say, chosin, let's say you have a bridegroom, shenoled bo nega, and he has again a nega tzaras, nos and lo zayin yemei hamishta. We give him the 7 days of celebration for the wedding. We don't do any inspections. Lo ulaveso v'lechsuso. We do that for him. We do that for tzaras that might be on his house, for tzaras that might be on his clothing. There are different kinds of tzaras. All of those things we delay it during the Zayin Yemei HaMishta. V'chein b'regel, and the same thing is true on the holiday. Nos and lo, Shivas Yemei HaRegel. We give the person the 7 days of the holiday to celebrate. We don't do the inspections. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Brisa continues. Rabbi Omer, Rabbi says, Eino tzarach. You don't need this pasuk of Yom Heros Bo. You can use a different source to prove this idea. Because Harehu Omer, because the pasuk says, this is talking specifically by tzaras on the house. The pasuk says, V'tziva HaKohen Ufinu Asabayis. It says the Kohen tells him to clear everything out of the house before doing the inspection. Again, you see this idea that by the house, the Kohen can delay the inspection in order to save everything in the house from becoming tamei. Take an opportunity, take a moment to clear out the house. And so now Rebbe says, if this is something, it's not even a mitzvah, and we're allowed to delay the inspection just for something to save these items, nothing to do with the mitzvah, kol shekain ledvar mitzvah, certainly for something that has to do with a mitzvah, you have a chosan, or you have a situation, again, like a regel, certainly you can delay the inspection. My beinayu, what's the difference between these two opinions? Amar Abaye says, mashmos dorshanika beinayu. They're just arguing what pasuk to learn from. Everybody agrees on the practical matter that it's all dependent on the Kohen, and the Kohen can delay if need be. But the Gemara says, V'Rava Amar, and Rava says, Devar Horashus Ika Beinayu. There is a machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and Rebbe, and the machlokas is, let's say it's something that's not related to a mitzvah. Rabbi Yehuda, as Rabbi Yehuda said explicitly, the idea that the Kohen doesn't do the inspection is only for a mitzvah purpose. He can push off the inspection. Let's say the individual is a chasan. Let's say it's the regel, you could push it off. But it's something, if it's something that's not related to a mitzvah, you can't push it off. And Rebbe says, no, that's not true. Rebbe says, we learn out from a house, because everybody agrees by the house that you could push it off in order to clear out the house. Rebbe says, we learn from there that anything, even if it's a davar or shus, even if it's not a mitzvah, you can delay the inspection even for such a purpose. The Gemara explains, Rabbi Yehuda mehasam lo gamrinan. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't learn from the case of tzaras on the house. He says, even though it's true by tzaras on the house, you can't learn that out by tzaras on the person's body. The chidishu, because tzaras of a house is actually a chidish. Rashi over here says lo gamrinan, to have a chidish, because the whole concept that a house can become tamei with tzaras, that's a chidish. Ume chidish lo yalfin, and from a chidish you can't learn out. The chol hechadik a chidish ein lach davar bo el chidusho. Anytime you have something that's a chidish, you can only learn out that halacha. You can't learn to other places. We'll take a look one Rashi back. Dvar harashus beinayu. They're arguing about something that's not a mitzvah. Rabbi Yehuda demapik mi biyom heros bo mi kan amru chasan v'regel dehainu mitzvah mamtinan lo. He learns from the fact that it says on the day you do the inspection, some days you do it, some days you don't. Meaning, if there's a mitzvah, you don't do it. Avol dvar harashus ein mamtinim lo betuma degufe. When it comes to something that's not a mitzvah, so when we're talking about tumah of the body specifically, that a davar harashus is not a reason to delay. The Rebbe says no. The dvar harashus nami mamtinan lo. Even by a dvar harashus, you can delay it. Even in that situation, because Rebbe learns out tuma on the body, lahamtin lo tuma, that you're allowed to delay, lahamtin lo to delay, mi tuma debe. So from the case of tuma on the house, he says you could learn, just like you can delay for the tuma on the house, so too you can delay for the tzaras on the body. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chof Amud Aleph.